Tonight, former Whyalla Mayor Lynn Brewer's assault case adjourned again during a hearing in Adelaide. And we take a look inside Port Pirie's new $1.2 million Thrive Health Centre.
This is Southern Cross News with Abby Donaldson.
Good evening. Prosecutors in the Lynn Brewer assault case have once again sought an adjournment during a hearing in Adelaide. They're evaluating the evidence to determine whether they'll send the former Whyalla Mayor's case to trial. John Hunt has the details.
It's been over a year since Lynn Brewer allegedly assaulted Angela Antonio, former mayoral candidate Tom Antonio's wife. She's accused of committing it after last year's Remembrance Day ceremony at Memorial Oval, while taking pictures with visiting soldiers. The case has been through a number of hearings across 11 months in 2 different court buildings, and yet the former Whyalla mayor has still not entered a plea. After months of pre-trial wrangling, we may finally have some movement on December 21. In the first Adelaide hearing since the case moved cities, amid concerns she would not receive a fair trial due to hometown bias, this morning Magistrate Fahy granted yet another adjournment. Prosecutors will return with a decision on whether they'll proceed to a trial stage after evaluating the evidence. They've told the court they're once again overlooking the case before deciding whether to prosecute Ms. Brewer. Ms. Brewer did not attend court this morning as she was not required to. John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
An irrigator along the Barwon-Darling River system has pleaded guilty to multiple water charges. Anthony Barlow was charged with 1 count of pumping water during an embargo and 2 counts of pumping with broken metering equipment. Water New South Wales brought the charges after extensive investigations into water management in the system. In total, Mr Barlow faces fines of up to $500,000 on each count and liability for the prosecutor's costs.
While the majority of irrigators do abide by the rules, this case makes clear that those doing the wrong thing will be punished.
The sentencing hearing has been set down for February. A $1.2 million health clinic has opened in Port Pirie, giving locals in the Mid-North much-needed access to rehabilitation facilities. The Thrive Health Centre features a group fitness room, hydrotherapy pool, Pilates studio and rehabilitation gym.
Mid-North residents will no longer have to commute all the way to Adelaide to gain access to health specialists and rehabilitation facilities, thanks to the opening of the Thrive Health Centre in Port Pirie.
Obviously we've got the hydrotherapy pool here, we've got the gym next door, Pilates studio and a range of consult rooms. We've also got a range of therapists.
The state-of-the-art facility will host a number of different specialists under one roof, as part of a modern method of handling rehabilitation.
Actually putting together a sort of seamless delivery for the whole of our community.
Now some of his people here in the different spheres of the operation, they're going out into the regions itself and to see people out there. So because a lot of people in the regions can't afford to come into an area.
The health precinct will host 12 full-time staff and will have a number of students rotating through the business each year. Local politicians are hoping that some of those will decide to stay on and contribute their expertise to the betterment of the community.
24 university subgraduates each year in allied health in allied health fields.
Renovated housing will also be supplied to house students rotating through the clinic. Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
Harvest is well underway across the Lower Eyre Peninsula, with many recording surprisingly higher than average yields. However, it hasn't all been smooth sailing, with late spring rains causing days of delays.
They call it the money shot, when after a tough year of minimal rain, a wheat crop produces upwards of 4 tonnes to the hectare.
Solid average and slightly above average for this particular area, so yeah, considering it was a very sketchy year, it's a good result.
Certainly a positive result, with wheat fetching $350 a tonne. Tumby Bay farmer Dion Lebrun says his yields have come down to a lucky recipe for success.
Modern technology, conservation farming practices, a little bit of rain at the right time, you know, and a fair bit of luck, and you know, we can still do quite well on not much rain.
But with harvest well underway across the region, farmers are growing increasingly frustrated at the stop-start work, with recent rainfall causing harvesters to stop operation.
Last Wednesday we had rain, I think the weekend before we had rain. Luckily not big amounts.
While the rain hasn't caused damage to crops, it's caused high moisture levels, meaning these grain dryers are being put in overdrive.
What we're reaping here today is 15% moisture. It's got to come down to a minimum of, or maximum of 13.5, so we'll have to cook that for, 2.5 hours.
Today's rainfall of 10 mil in many areas meant most harvesters had another day off, but farmers are still hopeful to be complete by the end of the year.
With machinery everyone's got nowadays, you can get over some acres really, really quick. So, we're still in line to be finished by Christmas if the rain stops.
Casey Treloar, Southern Cross News.
Still to come tonight, what Mentally Fit EP plans to do with yet another injection of funding from the local community bank. Welcome back. Whyalla copped a barrage of rain today as a storm front pushed across the city at around lunchtime, dumping 8 mils of rain between 12 and 1 o'clock. The conditions made driving tricky, with cars forced to pull over. It didn't last long though, moving out into the Gulf and across to Port Pirie in the afternoon. Whyalla has had nearly 35 millimetres of rain this month, but the total rainfall for the year is still well below the yearly average. Broken Hill could soon see more police officers walking the beat, with the New South Wales government getting behind law enforcement. The city will welcome 2 permanent officers to the region, but the superintendent is hoping to get more.
More coppers to join Broken Hill's ranks.
More police on the beat, great for our communities right across the state, including the Far West.
The state government has committed over $500 million to bring 1,500 more police into New South Wales, the single biggest boost to the force in over 30 years. Under the 4-year plan, all 58 police commands, Broken Hills included, will receive 2 specialist officers.
An elder abuse officer and officer working on the child protection register. 2 very vulnerable parts of our community, and it's great to have those dedicated officers assisting in that regard.
Broken Hill is part of the Barrier Police District, which also encompasses Wilcannia, Menindee, Balranald and several other townships. Superintendent Smith says while the Far West region has plenty of resources, more officers are always better.
We're certainly hopeful for additional officers, both here at Broken Hill and in other parts of our district, who can assist with our fight against crime, in particular our prevention, disruption and response to crime.
The Barrier Police District will put forward its case to receive more officers in the new year. Patrick Royenke, Southern Cross News.
Lil Home Aged Care in Port Pirie has been given a helping hand with a $6,100 grant from the federal government. The money was put towards renovations to the home's men's shed, which is now the nesting ground of a handful of inquisitive chooks.
I think the mental health benefits that we get from guys having a shed to go work and all that sort of stuff is just fantastic. And this is no slouch of an example of it too. Everything's there for the guys.
With many of the residents coming from farming backgrounds, it's hoped the incorporation of livestock will help boost morale. The home is calling on members of the community to get involved with the shed and help its members on some of their projects, including furniture restoration. The future of Mentally Fit EP has been secured with yet another injection of funding from the local community bank. The local banks from Port Lincoln and Cummins have donated in excess of $150,000 since the program began in 2014, and today the Mental Health Service received a further $25,000.
Without customers banking at the Bendigo banks locally, Mentally Fit EP wouldn't exist, because unfortunately to date we've been unable to secure any government funding despite trying really hard.
The program successfully brought about the Men's Wellness campaign and supports the local drought fund. Now the team hopes to reach further into isolated farming communities and launch a new phone app called Mentally Fit Me before the end of the year. 4 of Broken Hill's art organisations have joined forces to strengthen the city's cultural and artistic legacy. The newly formed group is looking ahead to 2019 and what can be done to further promote the city's art heritage.
It's called the Art Interagency Meeting.
We've organised a group called AIM Broken Hill.
The AIM group was established only a few months ago and is made up of the city's 4 art infrastructure builders: Screen Broken Hill, West Darling Arts, the Regional Art Gallery and the Broken Hill Art Exchange.
Broken Hill has a really thriving artistic community. We have over 20 art galleries and many others working in all different fields of art.
The collaborative team meets monthly to share resources, ideas and talk about funding opportunities. The recent AGL cross-cultural scholarships awarded to local and visiting artists are product of the group.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are all very different organisations, local government, state government, NGOs, so we all have to work a little bit differently, but it's about how we can make outcomes together.
It introduces outside artists to local artists, and they can have a look at what we're doing, which is it's very exciting.
Another initiative supported by the group is the Art on Doors project. The Grand Guest House on the city's main street is now a haven for artists in residence and locals needing a space to operate. Ms Thomas hopes to attract more artists from near and far to the city and add to its heritage.
This forming of the AIM group is going to help that, move that along and actually help us understand what heritage is. Why is Broken Hill Australia's heritage city? What is the importance, both now, in the past, and our inheritance into the future?
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us after the break. We'll have the weekend sport wrap, and in the weather after a rainy Tuesday, it's not going to stay like that for long with a very hot and windy start to summer. I'll have all the local weather details soon. Turning to sport now, and in Port Pirie baseball, the Tigers secured victory in both their matches over the weekend. They didn't have it all their own way though, having to hold off a fast finishing team in one match. John Hunt joins us now, and John, it was a tricky doubleheader.
Yeah, Abby, the Tigers had the dreaded doubleheader, which meant playing 2 games in one night. The first win on the night was quite comfortable, while the other was hard work. Their first clash saw the Tigers race to a 7-run-2 lead early in the second innings. However, the Cats fought back to within a couple before a late run helped the Tigers secure a 3-run win. The second match was a little more comfortable as they cruised past the Panthers 13-4. We switch sports to basketball and we start in Port Pirie. In the women's, Globetrotters were too strong for the Pacers, while 15 points from Maddie Pryor helped the Tomcats to a narrow win. Over in the men's, Ducks easily accounted for the Globetrotters, and the Tomcats had a 7-point win over the Pacers. Up in Port Augusta men's, the Wildcats and the Eagles took the chocolates in their encounters, while in the women's, Falcons Black and Spartans were victorious. In Wyler men's basketball, Wildcats were too strong for Bevan, and Rapina had a 79-53 win over the Titans, while in the women's, Titans edged out Demons 1. And finally, to Broken Hill tennis, Volleys had a big win over the Swallows, and the top spins were too strong for the Smashers. So that's all the sport for this week. Plenty happening across our region. Cricket Tips is back on Friday, and then we'll be back next Monday and Tuesday with all the results.
Thanks, John. And Christmas has come early with fuel prices starting to fall. Pat Reinke has the details.
Petrol prices continue to fall right across the Spencer Gulf and here in Broken Hill. Starting with unleaded, and what a great way to end the month. There's green everywhere you look. Port Lincoln has enjoyed a 3-cent drop and now averages around 1.51. Whyalla is starting to get cheaper with a 2-cent drop, while Port Augusta has finally left the 1.60 price range and currently sits on 1.57. Port Pirie has seen a big change in its price, tumbling down 5 cents to 1.42. Kadina is the best performer this week though, the town going down by almost 6 cents into the 1.30s. Here in Broken Hill, we've seen a 2-cent decline, but we're still paying almost 20 cents more a litre than Kadina. Adelaide is also enjoying low prices again. The average in the Big Smoke is touching $1.30. To diesel now, and Whyalla is the only one to not see any movement this week, still holding on an even 1.60. Port Lincoln is down by a cent, and that's the story in Port Pirie and Kadina as well. Port Augusta is hovering on 1.59. Broken Hill is paying the most at $1.65. Adelaide rounds out the board with a 12 12-cent decrease. And in Autogas LPG, it's a bit of a mixed bag to finish off November. Port Lincoln is down by a cent, Whyalla is down by 4. Conversely, Kadina has seen a big spike in its average, a little over 10 cents. Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Broken Hill are all breaking even. Adelaide is also seeing a bit of green, going down by 1 cent. Now remember, these prices are the regional averages and they do not reflect any one particular outlet. And if you do find a spot that does sell unleaded or diesel for cheaper, be sure to let us know on our Facebook page.
Thanks, Pat. Now it's time to take a look at what's happening in the weather. But first, thanks to Suzanne Albanese for sending in this spectacular shot of some rain clouds in Whyalla today. Thanks, Suzanne. Well, pictures tell 1,000 words, and it was a wet one around the Gulf today with heavy rain hitting some centres. We saw temps reaching the high teens to low 20s, Port Lincoln 19 the top. On the satellite, cloud moving over the far north of SA associated with a low pressure system is generating intense thunderstorms. Cloud in the west and north is moving east with a trough bringing patchy thunderstorms and rain, while cloud in the far south from cool southerlies is bringing the odd light shower. On the waters for your Wednesday, southwesterly winds are up to 25 knots, seas at 2 metres with a south-southwesterly swell. Sunrise will be just after 6 tomorrow morning and sunset will be at 11 past 8. Finding up tomorrow, a mix of sunshine and cloud for all centres. Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Woodna reaching a top of 23 degrees. Whyalla and Port Lincoln 21, while Cleve could see the odd shower. Mostly fine on Thursdays. It starts to warm up slightly too. Port Lincoln 22 the max, Woodna sunny and 27 the top. Cleve will see temps back in the 30s by Friday, and it's looking like a windy and very hot Saturday for Cleve and Woodna with temps around the mid-30s. Port Augusta warming up to 27 degrees on Thursday and a hot 34 by Friday. Whyalla and Kadina 29 the top to end the working week. And the first day of summer is looking like a scorcher. Port Augusta 38 the top on Saturday. Windy conditions forecast for Whyalla and Kadina. Mostly fine conditions here for the rest of the week as the dial gradually rises into the 30s. Sunny conditions on Thursday. Port Pirie and Broken Hill both heading for a top of 31 degrees on Friday. Clare 28 the top. But again, it's going to be a scorching start to summer on Saturday with windy conditions forecast for Port Pirie and Clare. And that's all the local news this Tuesday. I'm Abby Donaldson. Thanks for your company. We'll have updates later and we'll see you soon.